So what we do with these, we've done a million of them. So what we do with these is we tell you what not to watch on any given weekend, and then we say, hey, don't watch that. Watch this other thing instead that's different and better. But it's really hard on certain weekends when only one movie comes out and it's actually really good. Because the theoretical kind of conversation that I'd be having with you if you were a real person rather than one of the people watching on the internet is like, hey, do you like James Bond movies? And then you either say yes or no. And if you say no, then you kind of go like, oh, bye. Or if you say yes, then you say, hey, you should see Skyfall, because I saw it the other day and it's really awesome. There's not a person on earth who will claim to be a fan of James Bond movies that won't like Skyfall, because it's kind of like the uber James Bond movie. All the stuff that James Bond movies do, it does, and it does a lot better than any of those. But if you don't like James Bond movies, the thing that makes this one in particular so good as a James Bond movie is not the stunts or the action or anything else. It's the pairing of the director, Sam Mendes, and the director of photography, or the cinematographer, Roger Deakins. And Roger Deakins is my favorite photographer working in the movies. And he's the guy that shot all of the Coen brothers films and all of Sam Mendes films, all of the Coen brothers films after a certain point. And their partnership began on a movie called Barton Fink, which is what you should watch instead of Skyfall this weekend if, for whatever reason, you don't happen to be a fan of James Bond movies, because they both share two things. Skyfall is kind of a weirdly, lightly postmodern Bond film in that it's a Bond film about Bond films that references our relationship as viewers to Bond films, and it's got this meta level that's kind of weird that you may or may not like if you're a liker of Bond films. And Barton Fink, of course, is a deeply postmodern film by the Coen brothers that features John Goodman lit by fire in one really memorable scene, which is another thing that Roger Deakins does a lot. He did it in Jarhead with Sam Mendes, and he does it in Skyfall, and it's a really good example of what really good directors like the Coen brothers or like Sam Mendes can do with a talented photographer when they work together. And that's telling a story with photography and using photography to inform, not just, shine light into a corner so you can see what's happening, but also tell us about character and motivation and intention. And Skyfall is actually a pretty good example of that, although it's hampered by the goofier parts of the plot. Barton Fink is the perfect example of a film whose meaning is not necessarily clear, but a lot of it is to be found out through things like photography and the actual technical details of filmmaking. So watch it instead.